They say a man is defined by what he leaves behind, not the money in his pocket, not the stories he brags about in bars, but by what he does, especially for the ones who bear his name. My name is Marcus. I'm 36 years old, a high school teacher in Michigan, husband to a strong, beautiful woman named Dana, father to a 6-year-old girl who calls me her hero every night before bed, but long before all that, I was the firstborn of 7 children, raised in a cramped house in Colorado by a woman who wore her bones thin trying to be both mother and father, and the man who gave us life, well, he gave us nothing else. I was 11 when my father walked out of our lives. Not in the middle of a fight, not during some dramatic argument, no. He left in silence, so casual it felt surreal. He stood in the living room that morning, wearing a faded flannel shirt and jeans that hung a little loose. The duffel bag at his feet looked barely packed, maybe 3 shirts, a worn-out pair of boots, and a toothbrush. That's it. That's all he took. That's all we were worth to him. He cleared his throat and said, "I'm heading down to Arizona. There's work down there. Don't worry, I'll be sending money back soon." Just like that, I remember standing by the doorway, holding my little brother's hand. Mama was by the stove, stirring oatmeal. She didn't turn around. She didn't argue. She didn't beg him to stay. She just gave a tight nod, like she already knew this day was coming. Like maybe, deep down, she'd been preparing for it all along. He didn't kneel to say goodbye, didn't hug us, didn't even look any of us in the eye. One minute he was there, the next, he pulled the screen door open, stepped out, and let it slam shut behind him. Subscribe and like to support family stories and secrets. Let's proceed. That sound, that creaking squeal of old hinges followed by the sharp crack of the door, it's been burned into my memory ever since. Not loud, but final. I watched him walk down the dirt path in front of our house, his shoulders slumped and steps slow, like he wasn't sure where he was going. He turned the corner at the end of the street, and he never looked back. That was the last time we saw him for years. Mama kept stirring the oatmeal. I remember the way her hand trembled, just a little, no tears. No words, just silence. We didn't ask questions, not because we weren't curious, but because we already understood. Even at 11, I knew what had just happened. I knew something big had shifted in our family. And I knew, without anyone having to say it, that everything was about to get a lot harder. That morning, I stopped being a boy, stopped thinking like a kid. My eyes were open now, and I could see what Mama was really up against. 7 kids, 1 job, no partner, and all I could think was, we're on our own now. It wasn't the kind of moment that shattered the world in an instant. No shouting. No crying, just quiet. And a promise that would never be kept. He said he'd send money, said he'd come back, but he didn't, not then, not for a long, long time, and that was the day my childhood quietly ended. Mama never said a bad word about him, not once, not when the bills piled up and the power got cut. Not when we wore the same worn-out shoes year after year, not even when he came back after 2 years and pretended nothing had happened. She had this quiet strength about her, the kind that didn't need to shout to be heard, the kind that didn't come from books or sermons, but from living. From enduring. She worked at the local grocery store during the day. It was just a few miles from the house, but she always left before dawn, catching the first bus. She'd stand for hours, scanning groceries with a soft smile, even when her back hurt and her feet were blistered, and when the store closed, she'd head across town to clean offices, polishing floors and emptying trash cans for people who would never know her name. She never complained, not once. On Sundays, despite the exhaustion clinging to her like sweat, she made sure we went to church, dressed us up in hand-me-downs ironed with love, braided hair, buttoned shirts. Made sure we sat still and listened. Church was more than just worship. It was her reset, her place to gather peace before another hard week began. We were poor, like, real poor, the kind of poor where you count every coin before walking to the corner store, the kind where winter meant layering socks because we couldn't afford new coats, the kind where birthdays weren't marked with gifts, but with hugs and a small slice of cake Mama somehow made from scratch. Sometimes, all we had for dinner was rice and canned beans. And I swear to you, she could make that taste better than anything you'd get at a restaurant. She'd say grace, smile, and serve us like it was a five-star meal, but her biggest act of love, it was how she believed in us. Mama used to say, "Education is your escape. It's the boat. Get in it and row." She didn't just push us to go to school, she made it a mission. She'd sit at the kitchen table helping with homework when she could barely keep her eyes open. She kept stacks of scholarship forms, hunted for used textbooks, wrote letters to principals, begged for tuition waivers. She didn't just raise us, she lifted us. 7 kids, 1 woman, no man, no help, no praise, just a heart big enough to carry all our dreams, and we did it, all 7 of us, because Mama never let us believe we couldn't. She was the hero of our story, not with a cape, but with cracked hands, tired eyes, and an unbreakable will. Mama didn't just survive, she built something from nothing, and we are that something. A few years after he left, word started drifting back to us, like smoke from a fire we thought was out. Our father was still alive, living somewhere in Nebraska. Or maybe Utah, no one was ever certain, not even Mama. He moved often, slipping from one place to another like a man trying to outrun his own reflection. He'd pop back into town every couple of years, never announced, just showed up, usually when he was low on money or needed a place to crash for a night or two. Mama would let him sleep on the couch. She always left the door unlocked. I never understood that. He'd stay for a few days, pretend to care, and then vanish again without warning. No gifts. No stories. No apologies, just silence and a trail of cigarette smoke. To us, he was like a ghost, not the spooky kind, the kind that shows up when you least want it, pretending to be a father only when it was convenient. I was about 17 when I saw him without him seeing me. It was late, somewhere between dusk and darkness. I was walking home from work, passed by a local dive bar, the kind of place with flickering neon signs and cracked windows. I heard his laugh before I saw him, a loud, ugly sound, the kind that makes your stomach tighten. I peeked through the window. There he was, sitting at the bar, nursing a beer like it was his best friend. Wearing the same kind of flannel he left in, only older, more worn, face red, eyes glazed over. And then I heard it, his voice, bold and careless. "Yeah, all my kids are in college now. Smart bunch. I raised 'em right. Put every one of them through school. Hard work paid off, man." I froze, not from shock, but from fury. I wanted to storm in, I wanted to drag him outside and scream at him, make him list one of our birthdays, ask him what schools we went to, what we majored in, what we struggled with, what our dreams were. He wouldn't have known any of it. He sat there, basking in a lie he didn't earn, claiming credit for a life he ran from. I gripped the pole next to me so tight my knuckles went white. But I didn't go in, didn't say a word, because I realized something in that moment. You can't confront a man who lies to himself. It won't matter. He's already rewritten the story in his head, a fantasy where he was the provider, the guide, the proud father. But we knew the truth, and the truth was, he didn't raise us, he didn't support us, he didn't even know us, and yet, he sat there, toasting himself with beer he didn't deserve. It was the first time I saw him clearly, not as a father, but as a man desperately trying to escape the shame of being one. Let me be clear about something. He never sent money, not a dime, not even when Mama wrote to him directly. Just once, asking for help with school fees, not when we were behind on rent, not even when we got sick and needed medicine. He never bought clothes, never paid for school supplies, or chipped in for field trips, or even remembered our birthdays. And forget holidays. Christmas came and went every year without so much as a card. One time, I needed a new pair of shoes. I was in the 8th grade, we had gym every morning, and my shoes, hand-me-downs from my cousin, had holes so big, I could see my socks through the soles. Kids at school laughed, teachers looked away. I remember pretending it didn't bother me, but my feet were cold and wet by lunchtime every day. That night, I overheard Mama in the kitchen. She thought we were all asleep, but I was lying in bed, listening to her. She was praying, not the kind of prayer you say before a meal, the kind that comes from a place so deep, it cracks your voice. "Lord," she whispered, "I've done all I can. Just help me do more." I remember lying there with a lump in my throat. I wanted to help her, I wanted to be old enough to work, to take that burden off her shoulders, but I was just a kid with holes in his shoes and a silent fury toward a man who never cared. That same week, she picked up another cleaning job, night shifts this time. She barely slept. She'd come home at dawn, make us breakfast, and somehow still smile, and then, a few days later, there they were, a brand new pair of sneakers, waiting for me on the kitchen table, simple. Basic, but clean, new, and bought with love, from her, not him. He never knew about those shoes, never knew how badly I needed them, or how much they meant, and honestly, I doubt he would have cared. He never came to a parent-teacher meeting. Never watched a school play, never clapped from the bleachers during my little brother's football games. He missed everything, but somehow, he had the nerve to take credit years later, to act like he'd been part of the journey, like he was the reason we made it. No, he wasn't there in the nights filled with hunger, when Mama split one can of beans between 7 kids. He wasn't there when we studied by candlelight because the power got cut off. He didn't hold Mama when she broke down, thinking we didn't see. What he never did speaks louder than anything he's ever said, and what Mama did, that's what raised us. Somehow, we made it. I still don't fully understand how, but we did. My siblings and I, we studied like our lives depended on it, because in many ways, they did. We knew there was no safety net, no one coming to rescue us, no plan B. It was Mama, and it was us. That was it. We applied for every scholarship we could find. Every grant. Every community program that offered so much as a pencil or a bus pass. We became experts in survival, and in perseverance. I remember nights when the power was out and we'd gather around a single candle. I'd sit with my younger siblings, reading over their essays, rewriting, correcting grammar, adding just the right words to make them sound confident, determined, worthy. We shared books, shared shoes, shared dreams. And one by one, we got in, to college, to training programs, to internships, to jobs. We stepped into the very world our father never believed we'd reach, the one he never helped build. He wasn't there to see the acceptance letters, wasn't there for the graduation caps tossed in the air. But Mama was. Every time, I became a teacher, not just because I loved books, but because I knew the power of knowledge. It saved me, and now I try to pass that on. My sister Lena is a nurse. She used to bandage our scraped knees and take care of Mama when she got sick from overworking. Now, she does it professionally. My brother Malik. He's a mechanic, always had a knack for fixing things, taught himself from old car manuals and YouTube videos in the library. Aisha, soft-spoken and sharp-minded, works in tech out in Seattle. She codes like she's writing poetry. 2 of my other siblings, Maria and Eli, became social workers. I think seeing what Mama went through lit something inside them. They wanted to help other families survive what we did. And the youngest, Amira, she's still in med school, says she wants to become a pediatrician. Kids shouldn't have to grow up hurting, she told me once. She's right, and now, every single one of us sends money home to Mama, not because she asks. She never would, but because we remember how she kept us going, how she fed us when her own stomach was empty, how she carried a family on her back while a man with our last name disappeared into thin air. So we send what we can, to fix the roof, to pay the water bill, to make sure she never has to work another midnight shift again. That's our promise now. The turnaround wasn't luck, it was blood, sweat, and sacrifice. And it all started with one woman, our Rael. Hero. Last year, I got a call from my younger brother. Dad's sick, he said. I was sitting at my desk, grading papers when the phone rang. It wasn't unusual, my siblings and I talk regularly. But something in his voice told me this wasn't just a check-in. Real bad. He continued. Hospital wants upfront payment for tests. They won't move forward without it. I said nothing, not because I didn't hear him, but because I had nothing to say. He waited, letting the silence stretch between us like a frayed rope, then, quieter now, like he knew what was coming. They asked for you. Figured since you're the oldest. I hung up, just like that. Cold, maybe, but I've been carrying this coldness for years. It doesn't come out of nowhere, it's built over time, like rust on something that used to shine. Where was he when I needed one textbook paid for in my senior year, when I had to share a single calculator with 2 of my siblings, when Mama collapsed in the kitchen from exhaustion? And we had to call an ambulance using coins we scraped together from couch cushions and laundry jars. He wasn't there, not even close. He was out of state, chasing jobs he never found, chasing freedom he never deserved. He was drunk in bars, lying about how he raised us. While Mama was at home, raising us for real. Now he's sick, now his body is failing him, and suddenly, he remembers he has children. No, don't get me wrong, I don't wish pain on anyone, not even him, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and love has to be earned, and he never tried. Now he's back in Mama's house, too old to work, too weak to wander. I heard she makes him tea every morning, still takes care of him. Still makes sure he eats, even when his hands tremble too much to hold a spoon. She forgave him, I think, or at least found a way to live without bitterness. But me, I carry it still, not like a flame, but like a quiet stone inside my chest. It reminds me of everything he didn't do. I know my brother meant well by calling me, he's got a softer heart than I do, but I'm tired of being the one expected to rise above the pain. He was gone when it mattered, when we were kids, cold and scared and wondering why our dad didn't care. He left us in the storm, and now he wants shelter. I don't owe him warmth, not after all these years in the cold. I look at my daughter now and feel something strange. It's a mixture I can't always put into words, a blend of love and grief, soft and sharp, all at once. Love, because she's everything good, grief, because she reminds me of everything I didn't have. She's 6 now, curious, loud, gentle, the kind of child who asks deep questions out of nowhere and hugs without reason. The other day, she sat on the living room floor with a puzzle spread out around her, pieces scattered like a tiny, colorful storm. She looked up at me with big, expectant eyes and said, "Daddy, can you help me with this?" And just like that, I dropped everything, the laptop, the emails, the lesson plans, all of it, because I remember being her age, holding a science project kit in my hands, waiting for him to come home and help. I told him about it for days. Mama had even left it out on the table, hoping he'd notice, but he never came, didn't call, didn't ask how it went. I stayed up late, trying to put it together myself. It looked sloppy, the kind of project that makes teachers frown and classmates snicker, but I brought it in anyway, because I had no choice. So now, when my daughter asks for help with something as simple as a puzzle, I show up. Not because I'm some kind of hero, not because I have all the answers, but because being there matters, because showing up, sitting beside her, asking her where she thinks the corner pieces go, that means more than 1,000 apologies said too late. I'm not perfect. I lose my patience sometimes. There are nights I'm too tired, mornings I snap too quickly, but I'm here. I tuck her in every night, kiss her forehead, tell her I love her, even when the day was messy and loud and imperfect. That's more than he ever did, and when I see her run to me after school, backpack bouncing, eyes bright with stories, I realize I've broken the cycle. She'll grow up with memories of a father who listened, who laughed, who helped her finish puzzles and brushed tears off her cheeks when the world felt too big. That's my win. Not degrees or job titles or the salary that pays the mortgage, it's this, it's hearing her tiny voice say, "Thanks, Daddy," and knowing, deep in my bones, that I've changed the story, that she'll never have to write a chapter like mine. I went back to Colorado recently, just for a weekend. It had been years since I'd last been home, really been home. Not just passing through. This time, I stayed with Mama. The house hasn't changed much. Same peeling white paint on the porch rail, same wind chimes swaying at the front door, playing that familiar soft tune every time a breeze rolls through. Inside, it's warm, still smells like baked bread and lavender oil, like comfort. Like her, but this time, he was there too. I wasn't ready for that. He was sitting on the same sunken couch he left 2 decades ago, the one where he used to watch the news and pretend to be tired after doing nothing. Now, he looked tired for real. Thin, weak, skin loose around his eyes, hands trembling slightly as he held a cup of tea Mama had brought him. I didn't speak to him, not a word, just nodded when Mama opened the door and hugged her tightly, longer than usual. We sat in the kitchen for a while, her and me. She poured me tea, same chipped mug I always used as a kid. The one with the faded "World's Best Kid" printed on the side. She looked at me over the steam and said gently, "He's been here for the past 6 months." I didn't respond right away, My hands were clenched around the mug before I even noticed. He's not well, she continued. Her voice was soft, but steady. I couldn't leave him out there like that. And I just nodded, like I understood, like that made sense. But inside, my chest burned. I wanted to shout, wanted to ask, where was he when you weren't well, Mama? When you worked 2 jobs and still barely made rent, when you had to take the bus to work after walking us to school in the snow, when you fainted in front of the sink because you hadn't eaten all day? Where was this man when your hair turned gray before your time? But I didn't say any of that, because she already knew, and she forgave him anyway. I watched her later, refilling his tea, adjusting the throw blanket on his knees like it was the most natural thing in the world. There was no bitterness in her hands, no anger in her eyes. She just served, loved, gave. That's Mama, that's who she's always been, grace in human form. And me, I'm still learning. I haven't forgiven him, not yet, maybe not ever. But watching her that day, so calm, so steady, I realized that forgiveness doesn't always come in a lightning bolt. Sometimes it arrives in silence. In the small act of pouring tea for someone who never deserved it. Maybe that's where it starts. He looked at me, eyes hollow and old, sunken in like the years had taken more than just his youth. His voice cracked as he said my name, Marcus. Just that, one word, one attempt to bridge a lifetime with a whisper. But I turned away, went back outside. The screen door creaked behind me, the wind brushing against my face like a reminder that some silences are better left untouched. He doesn't get to say my name now, not after all these years, not after the birthdays he never showed up for, not after the Christmas mornings we sat around a tiny tree with dollar store gifts, while he drank himself happy in some other state. Not after I saw Mama cry into her hands in the middle of the night, whispering prayers that felt more like begging. He had chances, more than he deserved, but he chose distance, chose lies, chose himself, and now that his body is failing and his world has shrunk to 4 walls and my mother's kindness, he suddenly remembers my name. No, that's not how this works. People always say, blood is thicker than water. As if family means automatic forgiveness, as if biology makes betrayal less painful. But I say this, respect is thicker than blood, and he never earned mine. I stood outside on that porch for a long time, hands in my pockets, watching the wind bend the grass in the field behind the house, trying to feel something other than the slow boil inside me. Part of me wanted to go back in, not to talk, but to ask why. Why didn't you fight for us? Why didn't you call when Mama was sick? Why did you choose to be a stranger? But I didn't, because I already knew the answer. Some people don't want the burden of family, they want the title, the praise, the illusion, not the work. He wanted to look like a father, not be one, and now, he wants redemption, a quiet ending surrounded by the people he abandoned. But life doesn't hand out peace just because time ran out. You have to earn that. I don't hate him, I really don't. Hate would mean he still had that kind of power over me. What I feel is more like emptiness, a space where a father should have been. And when he said my name, with that brittle voice and broken face, all I could think was, too late. I don't know if I'll ever truly forgive him, maybe one day, maybe not. Some wounds don't bleed on the outside, they just sit deep under the skin, pulsing with memory. Forgiveness is complicated. People talk about it like it's a switch you flip, like it's something noble you do to free yourself. But when you've carried the silence of a missing father on your back since you were a boy, it becomes a part of you. Still, I'm not angry like I used to be. Time has chipped away at the sharpness, softened the edges of my bitterness, not because he deserves peace, but because I do. I've learned that I don't need his apology to move forward. I don't need his presence, his approval, or even his name. I have my own life now, one built on everything he failed to be. I keep sending money to Mama, because she's the one who showed up, she's the one who worked double shifts, prayed over us at night, and somehow still believed that we could make it. She's earned every dollar and then some. I keep raising my daughter with the love I never received. She knows I'm there, for the recitals, the sick days, the simple, everyday moments that build a childhood. Sometimes I watch her sleep, hand curled under her cheek, and I think, this is what healing looks like. Because I'm not just raising her, I'm raising the version of me that never got tucked in at night, that never heard, I'm proud of you, from the man who should have said it first. And I keep teaching. Not just math or writing or whatever the curriculum demands, I teach presence, I teach consistency, I teach my students that showing up matters more than anything else. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be there. That's the legacy I choose, not the one he gave me, but the one I'm building from scratch, with calloused hands, a tired heart, and a fire in my chest that refuses to die. Maybe one day, I'll sit across from him and say the things I've kept buried, or maybe I won't. Maybe the silence will be the final sentence in a story he started but never finished. Closure doesn't always come wrapped in peace, sometimes it looks like choosing not to be bitter. Sometimes it's a quiet drive back home, a kiss on your daughter's forehead, a text to your mother saying, "Thank you. I love you." And sometimes, it's just knowing you became everything he wasn't. That's enough for me. Maybe not closure in the neat, cinematic way, but closure, maybe. People often ask me why I don't just let go, why I don't visit him, why I didn't pay those hospital bills, and I tell them, you don't owe someone kindness just because they share your last name. You earn love, with sacrifice, with presence, with honesty. He was never there for us, but now he needs me, and the truth is, he always did, he just chose not to see it, now that it's too late. I finally understand, absence is louder than words, and some echoes never fade. Respect to the mothers who raise armies with empty pockets and full hearts. He was never there for us, but now he needs me. Please subscribe for more family revenge stories. Share your stories in the comments section, we will be eager to hear.